So hello and welcome to our demo of Refund Manager by Attentive Healthcare Solutions. We're excited to share our NextGen productivity add-on solution with you today. Before we get started, I wanted to take a quick moment to introduce ourselves. My name is Chelsea Grover and I'm the Marketing Communications Coordinator for Attentive. Later you're going to hear from Joseph Schultz, who is the Director of Product Solutions at Attentive. Joseph and his team are the people that actually built Refund Manager. Joe has been a key player since way back with the formation of Attentive in 2003. He has been working in healthcare since 1995 and has been working with NextGen since 1997. His passion for the industry is clear in every project he works on. For those of you who aren't familiar with Attentive, I wanted to share a bit of who we are with you. We've been in business as Attentive since 2003, but we've been NextGen users since 1997, EPM version 2.3. We specialize specifically in NextGen Healthcare. Our development teams know how to get data into, out of, and around NextGen to customize and tailor it to meet our clients' unique needs. Our purpose in life, the reason we exist, is to create delighted clients by helping them get the absolute most out of their NextGen software investment. It is our passion to provide solutions for our healthcare provider partners, which in turn help them to improve patient care, enhance the patient experience, and maintain a financially healthy practice. We really do everything NextGen, from consulting to hosting, customization to support, and we have two NextGen productivity add-on solutions, ChartGuard and Refund Manager, which is what we'll be discussing today. At Attentive, we're here to help. Okay, so Joe, I'm going to go ahead and pass the demo off to you. Feel free to get started when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Chelsea, and thank you to the people who are viewing our webinar today. We're going to spend a little bit of time covering what Refund Manager does, and then we'll spend the bulk of the time showing you how Refund Manager works, how it streamlines and automates your refund process. The purpose of Refund Manager ultimately is to make your job much easier. There's a lot of work that requires a lot of mouse clicks. What Refund Manager does is streamlines and automates those pieces. It streamlines by allowing you to take complex actions in NextGen and accomplish them simply by clicking checkbox. It automates by eliminating the manual data entry of moving data into your accounting system and pulling that check information from your refunds out of the accounting system back into NextGen. The overall goal is to help your practice be more effective. If your people aren't spending all their time handling credit balances, they can spend their time doing things that bring revenue in the door. Refund Manager was created 10 years ago, and in that time, we've created a strong following of client supporters who love Refund Manager. In fact, we have clients who bought it 10 years ago who are still actively using Refund Manager, which is a great testament to the software and its productivity and the fact it keeps helping you year after year. So let's go ahead and dive into the demonstration of Refund Manager. I'm going to go ahead and switch, and we're going to look at NextGen. When we created Refund Manager, one of our goals was to make this integrated with NextGen Practice Management. So when you sign into NextGen, Refund Manager gets installed in NextGen and gets launched out of NextGen and knows who you are. So to NextGen, when Refund Manager does work for you, it looks as if you did it yourself. It's one of the great things about Refund Manager is that streamlining and automation happens on your behalf within NextGen. Refund Manager has several modules which make it real easy to use. We have the Credit Scout, which helps you find credit balances and decide what you want to do with them. You can refund those credit balances. You can take those credit balances and distribute them to other encounters where money is owed. In fact, you can even distribute them across practices. Say you have a practice in a surgery center and you took the deposit in the practice and need to apply it in the surgery center. So we'll spend a bit of time in the Credit Scout covering that piece. We have the ability to go ahead and export out the refunds to the accounting system. In the demonstration environment for our webinar today, we're going to use QuickBooks, but we support a number of other accounting systems. Please feel free to contact us and ask us about your accounting system. A lot of the major ones we've already written integration for, and we continue to write integration for other accounting systems that we come across. And then last, we can use the import tool to go ahead and bring in the check information. That way you have that information for you in NextGen. So if someone calls the front desk and says, hey, was this refund sent out? You can look it up in NextGen and see that there's a check number and check date assigned to that. So we're going to start here in the Credit Scout. And the Credit Scout, again, is a tool that's going to help us find credit balances that we're going to take some action on in NextGen. There's a lot of search criteria along the top that's been suggested by our clients over Refund Manager's 10-year history, different ways to help you find different types of credits, whether you're looking for distributions or refunds, whether you're looking for a particular patient's name, whether you're cleaning up credits by financial class. All this is in here on the top of the screen. For the purpose of our webinar today, I'm going to go ahead and click Find and load our results on the bottom part of the screen. Now, here in our sample database, I've set up a number of patients that I'm going to jump to. Normally, you just kind of work your way down this list of guarantors and credits. So let's go down to a couple of the patients that are good candidates for refunds, and then we'll do a couple that are good candidates for distributions. So I'm going to start with Mary and Kelly. So I'm going to scroll this up to the top of the screen so that our attention is there. And what we're seeing at this level is kind of a summary of the guarantor. So the guarantor, the date of birth, so we can confirm who they are, the amount of patient credit balance, payer credit balance. This screen can look within a single practice, and it can even look across practices, and we'll see some of that in a minute. But all the way on the right here, we're seeing the practice that we're looking at. Of course, if you are in an enterprise situation, your ability to look across practices is determined by your NextGen security. So if you can only look at one practice in NextGen, you can only look at one practice here in Refund Manager. So we have this credit here of $123. Wow, that's great, but that still isn't cause to take some action on it. So we can go ahead and expand this out, and underneath we can see the practice, the payer, which in this case is the guarantor that's going to get the refund, and then the encounters down underneath. In fact, we can even go down to the charge level if you just want to refund a specific charge and not everything. Now, to issue all these refunds, we can go ahead and do a little more research with screens that mimic the financial summary and account summary screens in NextGen, or we can go ahead and do our research line by line and figure out whether this is a real refund or just a phantom refund through a number of adjustments. So the key is to give you those tools in Refund Manager to do a majority of the research you need without having to exit and go back to NextGen. In this case, for the purpose of our webinar today, we're going to go ahead and create these 6 refunds that we see down here. So I can just do one at a time by clicking the lower checkbox, or if we want to do all of them, we can click the higher checkbox. In this case, on your behalf, Refund Manager is going to create 6 refunds for you in NextGen. Now, a little more complicated one, this one we just have refunds going to the guarantor, but you can also have a mix of refunds going to the guarantor and the insurances. And I've set up another demo patient that I can scroll to, and we'll expand this one, and we'll see again, we have the practice underneath the guarantor, and then we have the 3 payers that are going to get the refund. We have the guarantor and, of course, 2 insurances. So if we expand these out, we can see more detail. We can see the encounter again and the charge. And the same thing here. For Medicare, we have 2 encounters that are making up that balance. So again, we can pick to refund one of these or all of these. For our purposes right now, we want to go ahead and show you how quickly it does refunds. So I'm going to pick to refund all of these different encounters and all these different credits. So if you think about in NextGen, you'd have to go pull up the encounters, add the transactions, pick the codes, key in the amounts. In Refund Manager, we're going to pick the checkbox, and in a few minutes, we're going to tell it to go ahead and do those refunds on your behalf. Refund Manager does support alternate addresses for refunds. It has its own address book in addition to supporting the new refund addresses that have been added to NextGen in versions 5.7 and 5.8. So those are a couple cases where we're going to generate a whole bunch of refunds here. Now, let's say you want to do a distribution. So you have money on one encounter, but they owe money on another encounter. Now, we have a filter for this screen where you could show just the distributions and go ahead and work down those. Having done this several times, I've created some patients that are good candidates for distributions. So again, I'm going to pick this one here, our test patient, Catherine, and we'll expand this out. And we'll see down here at a lower level, there's a $220 credit. And at the upper level, somehow $34.15 of that vanishes. So somewhere, this particular patient owes us that amount. So if we want to find that out, we can go ahead and click the Distribute checkbox. We can right mouse and do a distribution preview. In this case, it found the credit that we have on the left, and it's going to take it and put it against the debit on the right. So it's taking it from encounter 86,990, this particular charge, and putting it against 86,670, this particular charge. And it'll create that transaction for you in NextGen. So that one's nice. That's kind of a simple one. What if we have a more complex one with multiple encounters where there are credits and multiple encounters where money's owed? What if you have multiple practices and you want to move it across that? So we've set up another demo patient to show you what the distribution looks like for that. And that one is up here. This is Dennis Kramer. So we're going to go ahead and expand that one. And I'm going to click the distribution checkbox. And this time, instead of taking the default distribution, we're going to go ahead and match the transactions ourselves. So Refund Manager will bring up a distribution matching screen where on the upper left, we have the credits, and in the upper right, we have the debits. In this way, you can pick, using checkboxes, which ones you want to assign to which. So if we want to take this $13 and apply it within the same practice to this $45, we can go ahead and do that. And it'll build the transactions for you below, and then when we give it the go-ahead, it'll put those transactions into NextGen. Let's say we want to do something across practice. We have this $555 that we want to apply toward our surgery. We can go ahead and have Refund Manager do that too, and it'll create the transaction to write it off in one practice and the transaction to put the payment in the other practice. And again, as we do these, the balances change, and we can keep doing them until we run out of money on one side or the other. So again, if you think about in NextGen having to bounce around and create all these different transactions, this saves you a whole lot of time in doing your distributions and moving money around between various encounters, even between various practices. So now we've set up these 5 distributions. The left is where it's coming from, the right is where it's going to go, and when we give it the go-ahead, it'll do that for us. So we've created a couple accounts with refunds, a couple accounts with distributions. If you have some that are just so complex that you don't know what you want to do with it, but you want to come back to it later, you also have the option to task these into the work log so that you can either hand them off to someone else or come back to them later. So now when we're ready to have Refund Manager do all the work, we right mouse, do process items. We go ahead and pick for our tasks, what task type do you want? Well, we're going to do research encounter. We're going to use our transaction codes here for our refunds, and it'll remember each of these fields after the first time you use them. That's why these middle ones here for refunds are filled in already. And for the distributions, we have the ability to pick the one for moving money around within the practice, and then if we're moving money out of the practice, we can go ahead and have one that we're going to use for a write-off. And that could be an adjustment code, a refund code, or a payment code you pick based on how you do it manually. And then in the other practice, we can accept the payment. All right, so the distributions are very powerful in that it works within one practice or it works across multiple practices. All right, so now once we've got this all set up, we can tell Refund Manager, hey, go ahead and create these tasks, create these refunds, create these distributions, put them in our NextGen batches that are assigned to each of the practice, and we can create batches from here too in NextGen if we need to. Now, if you think about the time it would take for you to go create 11 refund transactions, Refund Manager is going to do that on your behalf in just a few seconds. We're going to test these out. And then last, it's going to do the distributions. And it's doing those in all the practices, creating your transactions for you. So now what does this look like for you in NextGen? Well, if we come over here to NextGen, we can get our batch. we can go ahead and post it, and then we'll go in and look at a couple of the transactions. So again, to NextGen, it's posting this batch thinking you manually did all this work because we do everything matching all the rules that NextGen does. So when it comes up with our batch listing report, just like you would have today, you can go ahead and print that out. So if we want to look at the account level, we can pick out one of these. And we'll see the transaction up at the top, and because we're moving it within the same, the net is 0. Okay, so we can see for all the different distributions we did, some are within the practice and some are across practices where it just does the write-off. That's taken care of for you. Those transactions are created. Now, more importantly, we have the refunds. So let's go ahead and take a look at a refund transaction, and then we'll follow it out to the accounting system and pull the check number back in. And that part of the equation is the full automation where it's really lightning fast. So we have our transaction here that was just created. In the tracking description, it puts your batch. It's also created an encounter note for you to give you a little more detail. When we export it out, it'll give you another encounter note. So we have these refunds now that we need to get into the accounting system. So how do we do that? We go back into Refund Manager. This could be the same day. This could be a week later. We find our batches that contain one or more refund transactions, and they can even be refund transactions that you did manually. And we can pick it, and we can export it out to the accounting system. Now, in the case of QuickBooks, we have the ability to consolidate the checks together if there are several checks going to the same person or insurance. In other accounting systems, it does that for you, but for QuickBooks, we went ahead and wrote this capability where you can review this and consolidate it down. I'm going to go ahead and tell it to continue the process. It's going to create the checks for us in the accounting system. Sometimes this is a direct interface like we're seeing here where it'll put it in. Other times it might be a file that you need to move over to your accounting system. Depends on the capabilities of the accounting system and how your network's set up. As part of the installation, we work with you on all that. So now if we go over into QuickBooks, we can look at our checks that have been created here for us. They don't have check numbers yet, so now on your accounting side, you didn't have to do all this data entry to get these payments in here. So the accounting people are happy also because they can just go in, do a quick review, and print their check batch without having to spend hours doing data entry, hours going back, making sure they didn't miss a decimal point, all those things that happen when doing things manually. So that's part of the power of automation, which is one of the things computers are good at. So let's go ahead and use the computer to automate this refund process. So now we have check numbers assigned here, and that's great. On the accounting side, you have your check numbers. It's all in there. But let's share that information with the NextGen folks. So let's go back into our Refund Manager. And again, could be the same day, could be the next day, could be a week later. We'll find our batches that have been exported, and we'll say, you know what? Go ahead and go get those payments out of the accounting system. All right, it consolidated down to 6 checks, but really there were 11 transactions that need to be updated. So we've brought that information back in. So now to close the loop, we can go back to NextGen. Now I haven't refreshed any of these screens, so let me jump off this encounter and jump back on, and we'll see now in the tracking description, you've captured the check number, check date, and check amount. So when someone calls the front desk, that information's in there. You didn't have to key it all back in. We also, on export, created a second encounter note that captures the address that was in play, whether it's the Refund Manager address for the refund or the NextGen address for the refund or just the normal address that's in NextGen. So this gets documented in here too for you. So the power of Refund Manager is to streamline and automate the NextGen process of handling credit balances. whether you're going to task them out for additional research, whether you're going to distribute them to other encounters where money's owed, or even across practices, or if you're going to cut refund checks and push that information out to the accounting system without having to do lots of data entry on the NextGen side or the accounting side, and close the loop by bringing that information back in. So let's join back up with our slideshow here.
Thanks so much for that information and demonstration, Joe. If you have any technical questions, please feel free to reach out to me, Joe, or Tom Seco, who's the Business Development Manager at Attentive. If you'd like to buy Refund Manager or have questions on the pricing, Tom Seco would be happy to help, or you can go directly through your NextGen sales rep or any authorized NextGen reseller. Thanks again for your time today, and if we can be of any assistance, please don't hesitate to let us know.
Thank you very much.